it's hard to sell or show somebody a vision that's your own. That's something I've realized. I have a podcast with a friend of mine, and we've been doing it for going on 3 years. We've worked with a number of people, and something I've realized: you cannot sell people your vision, and that's where 50,000 people adding in $1 each. It sounds great. I don't think it's gonna work with people. We're just not wired that. We're gonna say it's too many hands in the kitchen. There's just too many people involved, and people are gonna be like, nah. That's just how I always like interpret something like that.
Fair.
Yeah.
Fair. I beg to differ. I'm still on it. So if I get to 50K, I'm gonna tell everyone I got there, and I just think it's about trust. You have to be trustworthy. If I say to someone, if you donate with me, I'm gonna put it towards this cause. Within that week, you're gonna see me go out. And I know that some of you have seen me on Instagram doing charity drives. If I say I'm gonna do it, I'm gonna do it, right? So it's about the credibility of the person who's doing it. It's about showing the results. It's very simple. It's like college. You go to school, you go to learn. You decide what you take from that lesson, right? But at the end of it, you're gonna get a degree, so you've got something to show for it. So I think that it's about credibility too. And I think that that's what we're kind of avoiding. Go ahead, Obi, sorry.
No, I said totally.
Yeah, I've got, Philip said that we need to have more faith in our people. I agree. I think that we're a little bit too harsh on our community.
You don't think we need to be, though, given where we at compared to everybody else?
I think we have to hold them accountable, yes, but I think that we have to give them a chance to prove themselves ahead of doubting them.
I think we have to be real with our community. Like, I love this conversation that we have of support Black businesses, but we also have to hold ourselves to a higher standard. We got to realize customer service is valuable. I always make the point, like, I know a lot of Black women that do fingernails, and I think they're super talented, but then out here they don't do toes. I don't think that's like a good thing to do. Like, if you're going to provide a service and be a competition for somebody, I'm not just going to support you because you're Black. You're supposed to also provide all the things that I need. I could go to this one place and get 4 things done. I'm going to go to you, So we also as providers have to hold ourselves to a high standard, and as clients have to hold the people that, we're supporting to a higher standard.
So
I believe in supporting just because you're Black. I'm not expecting them to go above and beyond. I'm gonna support just because you're Black.
What you doing?
Or if they're Black,
I'm just supporting because you're Black. I'm not holding you to expectation or anything more. Like, you're Black. I'm gonna support you.
Fair. Someone said that we can have faith in ourselves because Black Wall Street was a success. So.
But Tulsa was bombed. After we create this Black Wall Street over, after we create Tulsa, Oklahoma over, how do we protect ourselves?
Well, I'm sorry, but in the hood, anyone that's in the hood, anyone knows hood culture, you protect your block.
That's a fact.
That is a fact. You don't let people come in and infiltrate. You just don't. You protect.
Who protect their block? What?
Oh, I do know. I'm joking. No,
protect their block.
Listen, they do protect the block.
You ain't see Dykeman during the riots? They was protecting their block.
In my opinion, I'm not coming from a place of ignorance, right? Okay, let's talk about the house. If I live here, nobody is infiltrating in my system. Absolutely no one. If an ant walks across the floor, they're in violation. Do you get what I mean? So for me, people, we have to protect our property more. We have to protect. If for instance, an Amy Cooper can call the police and use her white privilege, right, to say that she feels threatened, then we got to insert some Black privilege, because at the end of the day, if you live somewhere and you want to protect that place, you're not going to let someone just come and infiltrate. You just won't.
Yeah, your house. Yeah, like specifically your house.
But if you're coming together and it's your community, like how can you, we can't be selfish like that. If I see, like for instance, I'm a block ambassador. Where I used to live, I would always look out for everyone, my neighbors, their children. If I saw someone's child going down the street and I didn't see their parent, I'd call their parent. That's my responsibility as a community person to make sure that it's good. If there's trash on the floor, I'm likely to pick it up because that's my area. I'm protecting it. You don't necessarily have to stand outside and fight people, but I definitely think that you need, like, we're in a time where things are very dangerous, right, for us. So I care about my life. No offense. I have a bow and arrow. Like, I know how to use a bow and arrow. I know how to defend myself. So for me, it's like, when do we start to learn? There are people in other cultures that teach their children how to shoot a rifle at ripe ages, and we're so behind. We're humans. Human beings are a part of the animal species. We have to learn how to survive and fight for our lives and defend ourselves. I'm sorry, like, you know, I can't bend on that one. Like, I literally feel like we can all come together and support our communities.
We need more people like you in the world.
Thank you.
We do, because definitely here in Baltimore. Oh my Lord. And I don't know how familiar y'all are of Baltimore, but definitely from Baltimore County and Baltimore City, typically what people see the most, of course, on the news and the wire and all that stuff that other people refer to, that's Baltimore City. As far as somebody taking over the block or letting somebody infiltrate the block, that's not very hard to do. I can't speak for other cities, but in Baltimore, it's very rare to own anything on that block to stop anybody from doing anything on that block, whether it's police officer,
the property in Baltimore is dirt cheap.
Yeah.
So why can't people buy shit in Baltimore? It's not the same as Brooklyn. Shit is expensive out here. Baltimore, they selling shit for dirt cheap.
Let's say this as well. Since stuff is dirt cheap here, we also don't get paid as much as y'all in the other city as well.
Yeah.
So you talk about, just say if somebody talks about California, yeah, somebody at McDonald's makes $15 an hour. Oh yeah, it sounds good until you start calculating up all the prices of the rent, mortgage, all that stuff that's out there in California, given their price of living. So yeah, shit is dirt cheap here. And yes, I'm not making an excuse. Yes, we can put our heads together, money together to buy some shit. Like, yes, we can definitely do that. Realistically, what I've seen with my own two eyes, a lot of people here necessarily don't say they don't want to own, they lack the education about ownership or about how to take care of the community or take care of the hood, because there's so much access to other stuff outside of this block that I live on. So we thinking that we protecting the block, and it's a 11-year-old kid right now with a damn missile launcher that he just bought when he was in North Carolina that he brought back to Baltimore. And he ain't listening to nothing that nobody got to say about patrolling this block, because for one, 98% of us that live on this block, we don't own none of these houses. We just renting. We don't own that corner store. We don't own that liquor store. We don't own that hair store. We don't own nothing. So it's more like, what's going to make one of the adults and the OGs have enough influence on this little young dude to not go about being a statistic and own something and do something to make a change and make a difference in the community? That's very hard to do when the average 11-year-old has access to the same thing as the teacher. Why would the student want to listen to the teacher when he can get all this information without even asking and talking to the teacher? I mean, it's like it's a balance. Like it's a gift and a curse. Like there's, and I'm not saying that like everybody here is in Baltimore is that way. I'm just saying that process about uniting the community and the block, especially here in Baltimore, is going to be difficult because a lot of us here don't own nothing. So it's hard to patrol something when you don't own something.
Yeah,
What you do?
I get where you're coming from in regards to that, but I don't feel like you need to own something in order to appreciate it or maintain it. Because I just feel like there we have a responsibility once we decide to be a part of a community, or if we're born into a community, that we maintain it. That's all I'm saying, you know. And then we are as big as our own investment, right? And investment doesn't always have to be money. So if we're not investing in the community, if we're not investing in the youth, if we're just saying, okay, he's got access to that, what can I tell him different? I understand. I'm not speaking from like a place of naivety, right? I'm trying my best to understand it in a way that makes sense, right? So he has access to it, but what is the use in him having it if he doesn't know how to use it? Or what is the use in him having it if he uses it incorrectly? So it would be then for us, the wiser people, to say to him like, hey, like, I know you've got that, I know you've got access to it, I can't tell you what to do with it, but I would advise you not to. You know what I mean? It's like hearing someone like be rude to their parent on the street. You don't necessarily have to get involved, but like, don't speak to your parent like that, you know? And like, again, someone like me is a bit different, you know. I would have those tough conversations or put myself in instances where I maybe shouldn't. But I just feel like there's teaching moments in every aspect of life. I'm just really confused and perplexed as to why we're here outside of oppression, because we're all quite smart enough to understand how we can make a difference and what the impact is. So if we're going to still have the same mindset, what would a college degree do? What does that do if we're not going to pay it forward?
I agree. We have to be the change. We have to be the person to speak up and be like, yo, that's wrong. This is what needs to happen. Even if they don't listen, we still have to preach it. We still have to give them that education, even if they don't use it, because one of them gonna use it. You got to preach it to everybody.
I agree. And we spoke about social media. We spoke about the reach. I mean, I could talk about this as a gripe, but when everyone was blackouting on the Tuesday and going silent, there was an influence there, and everyone did it. So I do think there's enough power in what we have at our disposal to impact and affect the change that we need. You know, like, I'm sick of seeing this rhetoric online of what's happening, and to Will Smith's point, like, it's always been happening, we just now have cameras to see it, you know. And we aren't always able to see things, and we know I'm sure we've all experienced a tough loss, you know, in our lives personally. But I think that that's a part as well, that people have been very selfish for a very long time, and we've all been cooped in the house and had to deal with these harsher realities because we haven't had an escape, we haven't had somewhere to go and hide away from, you know. So going back to what's happening, how do you protect yourselves now when you're walking about or driving or just hanging out?
Y'all want to answer? Y'all want me to answer? I mean, I didn't want to talk. But how do I protect myself?
Is there a license to carry in Baltimore?
What?
There's a license to carry in Baltimore?
No. They damn sure ain't gonna do that no time soon. Yeah. Look, I mean, as far as protecting myself, one thing that I remember that my mother used to tell me all the time, even as like when I was in middle school, she just used to always say, never give other people a reason to think certain things, regardless of how many rights you got. It's very hard. Like, okay, when a lot of these killings, when the police officer killing people and stuff like that, a lot of people, they start talking about their criminal past and how they used to be. Like, that's some type of justification of them getting killed. Right. So obviously, regardless of your past, regardless how much education you got, regardless of what master's degree you got, regardless of what CEO of whatever company you got, a lot of these police officers and these upper people who control a lot of the things, they, at the end of the day, they don't give two shits. But at the end of the day, it's up to us, in a sense, to care about each other. And to embrace each other, which is so hard. Like it's so hard in these.
Now's the time. Now's the time
But
to be
now is the
selfless.
time to do
Word.
it, though. That's
Now's
the
the
thing.
time to
Like,
be selfless.
there's so many resources. There's so many resources to do so much right now. Like right now is like the perfect time for us to come together and accomplish so much together. But when I'm out here walking on these streets, driving on these streets, out here, out and about, first thing I just try to, make sure that I'm secure with myself. I pray. I make sure that, I'm not giving a reason for anybody, a police officer, anything to harass me. But I've been harassed even when I wasn't doing anything. You know what I mean? So I'm not gonna sit here and make it seem like just because I say I'm not gonna give people a reason. I've been personally harassed and beat up by police officers for no reason. I personally have went through that. You know what I mean? So it's more like until not only me, the individual, Mr. Mahad, but as a whole, until we start saying, F this, let's come together, let's start saving our money, let's start putting our money in these black businesses, let's start helping the next man who looks like me. I mean, that's all we really can do. Make a plan, have discussions and forums and webinars and stuff like this to where, we can discuss this to where y'all live in New York, I live in Baltimore. You know what I mean? Y'all mental might be different than my mental. It's a lot of things that y'all say that I can pick up on and vice versa, and maybe vice versa. You know what I mean? It's so many things that we can do just to educate not only us, on this webinar, but just, the people that we cool with to where we can definitely do it. We just got to buckle down and protect one another and invest in one another. It's just like those little steps like that. After a while, we'll start to see a difference in, amongst the community and as a whole, we'll start to see so much more change. But, it's definitely protecting yourself out here is definitely a hard task being a black man in America. I can honestly say that.
Obi, how are you Thank you, Mr. Mahad. Obi, how are you protecting yourself?
I'm just out here trying to move correct. I don't get too involved with too many people, of course. I'm a believer. I do want to, at some point, I do feel like we should all look into getting firearms. Times have changed. I think black people do need to start looking, like you were saying earlier, when you were talking about survival skills. How do you hunt? How do you fish? How do you shoot a gun? I do think these are things we need to start educating ourselves on and getting involved with. And we also pay attention to see what will happen to the laws if more of us decide to start going that direction of getting legal firearms. I do want to see if laws will start being adjusted or if they'll continue to be, as loose as they are. But generally I just try to be careful, walk around with my head up, stay out the way, and just continue to survive out here.
Survival.
Rob, how are you protecting yourself?
I protect myself in many ways. Like after the Trayvon Martin situation, I literally stopped wearing hoodies. I don't own a hoodie to this day because of that one situation, because I don't want to be mistaken or look aggressive to anyone. I perceive myself through the eyes of other cultures, and I'm very mindful of what they might find offensive and what they may not. And I try to maneuver around them. Like what Boomy said at the beginning, we learned to maneuver at a young age. Right now, I do not go into hoods or ghettos anymore. I don't go in those areas. Like you won't see me in the projects anymore. I live in Park Slope now, and like my neighborhood, I've never had any issues over here. So I put myself in communities and I surround myself with people that I'm not gonna have those issues with. I don't believe in white allies, so I stay around black people majority of the time. So that's me protecting myself from dealing with Caucasians and racism or inadvertent or direct racism dealing with them. I drive a car with a dark tent, but I took the tent off so the police don't find reasons to come and pull me over for like stupidity. And with the tent in the front off, like the back is still dark. But it's like I do little things like that just to not set myself up because I don't want them to come and mess with me. I don't want to be bothered by them. And of course, when they do come and pull me over, I have my my hospital ID in the window, so they'll be like, "Oh, okay, you work for the hospital, I'll let you go." Or my aunt's a police officer, she's a correction officer. I have her PBA card in my wallet, and they say, "Oh, okay, we'll let you go." But I try my best to stay out of their way, and hopefully they'll stay out of mine. I see what you wrote, Gavin. I agree with you, but the only thing I could do right now is conform. There's nothing more that I could do.
So that's
you think.
Go ahead, Mr. Mahad.
But I was just about to ask, do you think that they harass you less because you don't have a hoodie on?
Hell yeah, they don't fuck with me. I wear khakis and polos. Like, I got like 30 of these shits and khakis. You don't see me sagging my pants. I don't wear like Jordans every day. I wear freaking Oxford Zeros. Like, who wears those? Like, I just completely changed the way that I dress because I don't want to be looked at as a typical nigga. That's the reason why I dress the way that I dress, and I stay out of certain.
No, I'm sorry. Go ahead. You can go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I think that's why they don't bother me like in certain neighborhoods, because they use prejudice, and they will look at me and they'll look at another black person, but you know what? Let me go mess with him, the guy that's all baggy, or the guy that's drinking on the corner, or shit like that. I don't drink in public. Like, there's a lot of things I just don't do anymore.
Okay, so what I'm reading is that you're going against the stereotype to basically protect yourself, is how you feel, right? So then I'm gonna ask you a question. This is not attack. How are you living in your true truth then? Like, who are you? Like, if you feel like you're changing who you are to just be safe and okay, and I feel like, I commend you, whatever you choose to do, then are you living at your fullest potential as Rob, or are you living as Rob what other people want to see? Or I don't know, like, how to even pose that. Do you feel like you're happy in this reality?
No, not really. I mean, I'm never really happy all the time. I'm a sadist. We discussed this many times.
Yes.
But I just try not. I don't know if I'm living in my true self. That's a good question. That's a psych question. I don't know the answer to that question. But like, I just don't want to end up like freaking Mike Brown or some shit. Like, that shit, I don't want that to be me.
I know, but I don't think any of them thought that was going to be them. I think that not all of them, none of them deserved any of that. That's first, right? But for me, it's the crazy thing when it comes to apparel is everything is being dictated, right? And to Gavin's point, he said that's what they want. They want us to conform. They want to have that control. So now they have the autonomy over.
But Gavin's conformed though. Look at how Gavin dresses. He's a supervisor. He's a manager. Gavin got his shit together. Yeah, when we talking about Gavin, he's completely conformed.
But
add Gavin to this chat. It's
Gavin, if you're down, we'll add you.
Gavin still stays with his Air Force One.
Yeah.
Gavin's a savage.
Gavin,
he's
I can
see manager at a fucking white company. Like,
but don't say that because no. But the thing is, conforming to be in the work environment and be professional is different than changing your whole life identity, right? And I know you, Rob, so I know that we have deep conversations, right? And I know that we all are learning ourselves. This experience has obviously taught us so much. We're all learning how to maneuver by way of survival, I'm talking, right? So if you feel like that's what you need to do to protect yourself, I'm not knocking it. I want you, as I know you personally, to live in your best truth and your best life. And for right now, it sounds shackled, right? And I don't want you to have to live like that. If you want to wear a hoodie, wear a hoodie. Like, you know what I mean? I know that's what you feel that you need to do to protect yourself, but many people have done nothing and are still dying.
I've been beat up by police wearing suit and tie. I've been both sides of the fence.
I mean, Rob does have sometimes your look might get you away from things, but it's not all the time. I've been pulled over and like you said, I had a suit hanging up, and that stopped me from like getting. It was like, all right, get away, because I.
But that's wrong.
So why y'all living on eggshells?
It's not.
I'm not living on eggshells.
If you come across the wrong cop, it's not something I would depend on and say, okay, this is some. At the end of the day, you're black, so they're gonna shoot you and find another reason to say your car key look like a gun. That's just how it's gonna go.
Look,
Hmm.
if at the end of the day, if it's meant for you to go, it's meant for you to go, which is sad to say. But at the end of the day, regardless if I got this hoodie on or regardless if I got this suit on, if this cop don't like that I'm black, he gonna bust my ass.
Hi,
Me
Gavin.
personally-
Welcome.
Me
What's up,
personally, that has
everyone?
happened
Defend
to me before.
yourself.
So
Defend yourself.
I have to get Zoom ready. I have to follow Obi. I was a little,
Welcome, Gavin.
He had to get Zoom ready.
I'm gonna jump in when you guys, everybody express themselves.
I want
get back to Rob's
I
point.
want to hear Gary's side.
You want to hear you, Gavin?
Gary's side. Let me.
So,
Gavin, I'm sorry.
Just to address Rob, I don't know. Once again, it's all perception, so I don't know how someone would view me anyway. So, if you're like, well, I've conformed already. In what way? In the way, like, you perceive me, or in my actual actions, in the way I carry myself, in the way where I live, who I interact with. In what way would you say, like, I've conformed already?
All right. So from my perception of Gavin, I've known you for about 10 years probably. You are, like, at work, you're one way, like, you blend in perfectly with, like, managers, and you moved your way up, and you dress very nice, and you basically conformed and you fit in perfectly with them. But then I get to see you at parties and you're a whole different Gavin. Then I get to see you, like, you actually go on vacation and you party and you be bugging out at these parties. And I'm like, wow, Gavin is two completely different people. And he found a way to be one way here, but another way
That's
there.
smart.
So, yeah, that's smart. But it's also a form of conforming. Like, is that you being you at all points in time? It's code switching is what someone in the chat just wrote. So
Yeah,
that's what I'm saying.
But all right, so here's the thing: you
Hey, Christine just wrote something too.
You can pretend to be someone, right? So you can pretend to be like I couldn't go to work, right? I couldn't go to work and speak like to your let's like use your analogy. I couldn't speak their language. I couldn't act a certain way. I couldn't dress a certain way if I didn't know how to. I can't pretend to be college educated if I've never went to college. I can't pretend to be from the hood if I'm not from the hood. You understand what I'm saying? So the fact that I fit into multiple different places, I guess to your point, is not a good thing, it's not a bad thing. It's like we're doing what's necessary. So back to Sharice's point where she was like, yeah, I think we, how do we survive? Like, we know how to survive. This is part of survival, right? This is part of you being in the hood. And then if a DT is there, like, you can easily detect a DT, right? You know, a plainclothes when you see him. Like, how is that, right? So it's no different than being able to fit into whatever surroundings you need to be in. But at the end of the day, bro, like, none of us here is where we think we should be. So as much as you think that I fit in with the people at work, I don't fit in. I'd be the executive already. There'd be no need to have this call at all if that was the case.
Yeah, and someone wrote in the chat that code switching is similar to speaking multiple language. It's smart. I agree. I think that being able, it's like a chameleon,
But you guys got to understand as well that it's a means to an end, right? So as much as you think that I'm code switching or I fit into this paradigm, it's just a method of control. I'm just like a low-level manager in the grand scheme of things, right? Like, I'm not reaping executive level benefits. Like, I'm not working hand in hand with the CEO. I'm not creating changes to employ and empower Black people. So as much as I'm up, it's similar to what you were saying, like, oh, I live in Park Slope. I separate myself from da-da-da. I don't go to ghettos no more. That's what they want you to do. They want you to move as far away from, like, what is the true reality. Like, what difference are you going to make by doing all those things? If a cop stops you tomorrow with all those credentials, they don't want to see a resume. They don't know your resume. They just know that you're Black. They just know that you could be from Africa, from London, from Jamaica. Bro, it doesn't matter. It's just...
I put myself in a position where I'm less likely to get stopped. No one's stopping me at 7th Avenue train station or the Brooklyn Museum train station. But if I go over to Franklin, they might randomly select me to have my bag checked or something like that. That's the little things that I do to protect myself. And that's what the question was what do you do to protect yourself? And those are like a plethora of things that I do. And then she said that I'm not living in my true self. So would code switching be living in your true self?
Yeah, I applied for the job.
I think code switching is living in your true self.
What do I have to do for my paycheck? They didn't come find me in the hood. It was like, all right, well, I need you to do this thing for me. It's a job. We apply for the job at the end of the day, no matter how you want to look at it. Like, unless we're employing ourselves, then there's rules and regulations to whatever we're doing. When you go to the hospital, you have to dress a certain way, right? You have a uniform, correct? Right? There's a whole bill of rights for like how you need to interact with the patients, et cetera, et cetera. So you're conforming to the business setting. You're not conforming to being I guess a white person or whatever, however you want to look at it. It's just rules.
Yeah, and obviously this isn't a knock on your protection. You're showing how you protect. We talk, so I know what it is for you. So for me, it's like, I definitely think that there's a way to be appropriate. Like, for instance, if I'm in my car and I'm driving and I'm playing music, do I sometimes think maybe I should switch it down? Yeah. But then I think, you know what? Nobody else is switching theirs down. Why should I feel guilty because I'm playing my music? So I play it. And that's just how I feel. I do think there's a difference between code switching and not living in your best life. But I do think that we all learn at different ages how to fully embrace ourselves. As Obi said, he didn't learn until he was in his late 20s. You know what I mean? Some people don't learn until they're 50.
Rob, so the people at work, do they know you outside of work? Do they know the things that you actually do and enjoy?
No, I completely separate my work life. Like, me and you probably never really got to hang out at work because I don't hang out with people at work. But outside of work, yeah, I'm down. I'm more interactive with people that I used to work with on social media than I am when we actually work together. It's like at work, I try to separate myself completely because I don't want you to know who I really am or the things that I'm really into because you might not approve of it. It's just like talking about politics at work. You're not supposed to do it. And
but you have to realize, like, everything you do. So if you think about, all right, so to even answer what I just asked you, everyone at work knows what I do, right? But they only know what I show them. They only know what is available. So if they follow me on social media, they don't even see what I put on social media. But short of that, it's all a controlled narrative of like, yo, this is who I am and what I do. Anything outside of that is kind of not relevant to work. Like, there's 90% of people at work, like, we can only talk about work. I'm not interested in anything outside of talking about work because there's no intersectionality. Like, we are just generally not into the same things. Like, you're probably not as, like, culturally aware of like what's happening. Like, you have a different worldview from me.
Work relationship.
Yeah. So and we have the greatest work relationship ever known to man. But other than that, like, there's no need to even hide what I'm doing outside of work. It's just like, I just make it about work. Like, when I go to work, I want to be the best employee, so I can reap the benefits of that. But I don't need anything outside of work to interfere with like what I have to do at work. Like, if someone sees I'm partying late last night, I don't want to go to work and hear about like, yo, where you was at, bro? Like, yo, it was lit in there, or this. Like, why would that be a conversation?
Yeah, have you always been a Mets fan?
No,
here we go.
This was just in the closet. I just got to.
Thank you.
Boomy, what do you do to protect yourself in times like this and situations like this? You didn't answer that question. You didn't answer the question.
Nah, man, I just stay clear. I do the same things I've always been doing. I keep police interaction to a minimum. I stay in places I'm familiar. You know what I'm saying? I stay away from police.
But it's not just the police that you have to protect yourself from. You know what I mean? It's.
Yeah, I didn't even answer that question. So even to answer that question is like, yo, I mean, if we're in those high police, high traffic environments, then that's something you got to worry about. But like, it's not a reality for a lot of people. Like the shit that we've seen on TV and the stop and frisk and that's not reality in a lot of places. Like, I was just in Atlanta for the past couple of weeks, and it's like, if you live, don't get me wrong, in a hood where you see cops all the time, there's a lot of foot patrol and a lot of people walking, that's the reality. But short of that, like, you're not seeing that much people. You know what I mean? Like, you're driving everywhere, you're getting out of your car, you're probably congregating amongst your people, etc. It's only when you look at, like, say, I know, Mr. Mahad, you're in Baltimore, right? So Baltimore, you look like, all right, we're from Brooklyn, we're from Harlem, we're from the Bronx, whatever. Like, this is not everyone's reality. So a lot of people, and that's part of what I was saying earlier, Rob, like, the further you get away from it, you think you're not a part of it or it doesn't relate to you. And that's part of the issue because, like, you're not experiencing it. So it's like, not to say like you care less about what's happening, is just that you just become another marginalized person. You're like, oh, that's cool, but like, I live in Park Slope now. That's cool, but this is my salary. That's cool, but I work in this hospital. So you don't interact with the problems, although they exist. You don't realize that like we're all being somewhat oppressed, even on a professional level. Like,
and you might be a victim to your white neighbors when you move out of the
exactly. And what's
you know?
more embarrassing, actually, I mean, I guess we can't really wait to two, but like being stopped in Flatbush, Brooklyn will feel very much different than being stopped in Beverly Hills for the same shit. Like all of a sudden, like your blackness is on display. Like, oh shit,
yeah,
what's going on?
Yeah, so I'm going to ask the question, where do you feel most protected? Because I live in a neighborhood that I'm a minority, which is I don't want to say it's uncomfortable for me, but it's unusual because I'm used to metropolitan, like being a part of the city and being able to be around multiple different races, right? But ultimately, we're a minority here. So where do you feel most protective? So like Rob, obviously it's your area because you've placed yourself in Park Slope. We know what Park Slope's about. It's very gentrified. You know, if anyone listening isn't from New York, Park Slope is gentrified. It's very neighborhoody. And it does feel safe. But I will say, I'm gonna say a quote or a little scenario that I've had to deal with for a few years. Like someone had said, if you had the option to walk down a dangerous neighborhood in the daytime or a quiet neighborhood in the nighttime, which one are you taking? I said dangerous neighborhood all day because I know what I'm expecting, right? But I feel like everyone's idea on that is different. So
I'm not going to Chicago.
Why?
Why not? Why not? What's wrong with Chicago?
Chicago is beautiful. It's a beautiful city.
Think like that, Rob. That's part of the issue, bro. All right, so take it back.
What's wrong with Chicago?
Yeah, what's wrong with? Have you been to Chicago?
Dude, the death rate is crazy.
No,
All the people dying in Chicago. I'm not going to Chicago. It's not happening.
Rob, listen.
I'm not going to Chicago. It's not happening.
Okay, Rob, go back 10 years. Go back 10 years. Everyone go back 10 years. Pre social media, pre Instagram. Go back 10 years. Did you travel a lot?
Not as much as you, but I did travel.
No.
America,
Don't
like
not
DC, like DC, East America.
Have you been to Chicago?
Florida, DC, North Carolina.
All right. So in the past
Maine.
10 years, you started to travel more, right? You started to explore more places, right?
Yeah.
Why do you think that is?
Because I have the money to go and I'm more open to it.
You're able to see and connect with people that are in those places, right?
Yes.
Correct, right? So it's no different now. Like part of like oppression, if you will, is like we don't get to see black faces in black places doing wonderfully well. If you go to Chicago is a tale of two cities. It's just like New York City. You have Upper East Side, then you have the East Side, you know what I mean? Or Lower East Side, if you want to call it that. Upper East Side or Lower East Side. So Chicago is no different. They want you to think that it's all guns and violence. And when you go to Chicago, it's like, yo, this shit is like the most beautiful, modern city. It's clean. It's just, but it's like a tale of two cities. You literally have to go to, like, the hood is very small. It's very small in Chicago.
Chicago is I'll be honest, Chicago is one of the most beautiful cities I've had the pleasure of visiting. And I used to go there once a month. I didn't feel unsafe at all. And I wasn't just staying in the city. I literally traveled about. I'd go to art galleries in places that people wouldn't expect me to. But Chicago is beautiful. I asked that question to you, Rob, like if you've been, because I think it's really important that we can't make a definitive answer on something until we've visited somewhere or we've experienced it or we do enough research on it. What you're seeing on the media is what they want you to see. Just like what I tell you about me is what I want you to know. You might not know anything about me, my real life. I'm going to tell you my professional life, right? Or something that I feel is safe. But I do think that we need to come out of this like, we're safe if we stay here and we don't care what happens elsewhere because it's not impacting us. So let me stay here. Like to Gavin's point, it's not okay because then how do those people get better? I could easily be like, oh, I can go home. I could go back to the UK. But I feel like the issues in America are greater for me to be able to help and address. So I feel like there's more pressure on me to assist here than there would be back home. Because I'm here and I see what's happening. So if I hear someone in the UK speak ignorantly of issues that happen in America, I step in and I educate them because they don't know nothing more than what they see in the news. So it's for us to really educate. Like, I really think that we need to get out of that as a culture. Like, you can't have such a strong opinion on something if you've never experienced it. But you can learn from people. You can tap into people from Chicago and say, hey, like, what is it really like? Like, can you share with me? We have the option, you know, to go on social media and have access to people. So, you know, that's just me. That's me.
Think about Brooklyn now, right? Like if you ask most people, like I work for a company where, I mean, if they're not hired internally, like 90% of the people that are like, you know, management level and above, they're coming from Canada. They're coming from different countries. And
Right.
they're all like, yeah, we're moving to New York. I'm like, okay, cool. Where you moving to? None of them say Brooklyn. And you wonder why, like, what's the perception of Brooklyn? And for people who know Brooklyn and live in Brooklyn, you will understand that, like, that's a 90s perception that most people have. Like, oh, they don't realize that, like, there's parts of Brooklyn that's way more expensive than living in the cities. Like, look at Barclays Center. Look at, like, any neighborhood you can name. It doesn't even matter what it is, but it's like an old way of thinking. It's just like, oh, that, or Harlem, I don't really know about Harlem, or whatever it may be. It's like, when we know in reality that those places are not what it is. Like, you love Park Slope, I'm sure. But if you said that to one of your white coworkers that is not from New York City, they're like, nah, I don't want to move to Brooklyn. Park Slope, I'm good. I want to move to Gramercy. I want to move to Chelsea. Right? Regardless of them knowing anything about it. So you can't just say, somewhere is so bad, or you looking at basically what they just shown in the news. Because Chicago is like, who do you know? You know, like, who do you know from Chicago? Like,
what if you know that place is bad as hell though?
Say it again?
I've been to New Jersey. I've been to Philly. That place is bad as shit.
Everywhere has this theory, but you can't blanket it. Like, that's like saying, you know what I'm saying? Like,
Can't just judge it.
Long Island is bad. You know, all of Long Island is bad, but you know, those areas of Long Island, like, yo, that's is not nice.
Yeah, I mean, you always have to do your research. I think it's important to do your research. I'm not saying that it's not a good idea. Like when you're traveling to another country and you want to get like a little bit of a synopsis of what it's about, you know, you research it. Like people would say stuff like that about Mexico, and I'd still go, you know, like because it depends on where you go. So I think that it's relevant to do your research. But I do want to swing it back to the question at hand. Like, where do you feel safe? Mr. Mahad, you're quiet down there.
I had I wanted to let everybody talk first because I had a question.
Oh, go ahead. Shoot.
If y'all say that y'all don't go into these so-called bad neighborhoods, whether it's Chicago, Brooklyn, Harlem, whatever bad neighborhoods, how do y'all expect for them to get better? Or like, if you have the knowledge, you living in Brooklyn, you living in Harlem, you work at this whatever company, you're a manager, supervisor, all this, and you have all this knowledge and all this access, how do y'all talk to those people who live in those bad areas who may need help with getting those good jobs or getting out of those bad situations or those bad neighborhoods that y'all proclaim? How do y'all help those individuals?
Well, I think the answer to that, like, if you don't already live in those places, then that has to be like a conscious effort. Like, I want to go back to wherever those places are. I want to try to help people. So us being people is all about intersectionality, right? Like, if I'm doing whatever I'm doing, if I'm investing in real estate, if I'm thinking about going to law school, if I'm whatever, I'm going to interact with the people that I see with on a daily basis. So where we live informs a lot of that, where we work informs a lot of that, where we go to school informs a lot of that. But beyond that, it has to be an effort. Like, if I didn't grow up in the projects, like, it may not be front of mind for me to go back to the projects. It's not an environment that I really know. So you try to deal with people, I guess, kind of on the basis of, like, you know, proximity, like what you know and what you're close to. Now, there are many people who take that on, like, as a personal task, like, yo, this is something I want to do. I want to empower people from those communities. But if we're being 100%, we're all from those communities. And if we're being honest, is like, what one man does doesn't mean other people fall in line either. So as much as you mean well and you want to help people, people have to be ready to accept that. And then there's more dynamics as well, as far as like wanting to go to those places. If you're not going to them, I mean, to Rob's point, like, okay, I'm in Park Slope. I don't want to go back to Ghetto. I don't want to go back to the hood. It's a lot to be said about that too. Is like, we could pick any bad neighborhood in New York City, and as working people, we all working here. How many of us can just straight up say, yeah, I want to go buy a house in the same quote unquote bad neighborhood? We can't even afford to do that.
I've been looking at
want to do that.
$700,000 that's ran down.
Somebody gonna have to make that effort though, because if a lot of y'all are saying I'm not gonna even go back to the neighborhood, I don't.
That was Rob. That was
walk through the neighborhood. I'm just saying.
That's one person. Everybody else with the shits. Everybody else want to go back to the neighborhoods and be active in their neighborhoods. I want to be all the way in the projects, all the way on the east side. I inform all my little homies, like, yo, you have to be safe. You have to educate yourself, and don't follow what you see in the media.
Hey, they gotta fall in line.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, we're all connected in some way. So it's like we've all hung out in and around each other's neighborhoods once, twice, a few times. It's that thing. Like we have, I like to say it in reverse. We have the complexion for the protection, right? So it doesn't really matter where we are. We're good with each other for the most part, right? So, for instance, what Gavin's saying is we meet a lot of people when we work with them. Work has allowed us the accessibility to people, and we learn where they're from. So it's that one random day where we're like, oh, let's hang out. Let's be honest, majority of us formed relationships and friendships through working with each other, you know, and through having that establishment. And there's going to be a time when you get closer, you want people to be around your area, or you have a house party at your house and they are exposed to your neighborhood, you know. So I don't think we're that far removed. And I do understand, like, by way of survival, everyone survives differently, you know. Some people like to, like, for instance, where we're in now with the pandemic, some people easily go outside every day. Some people are essential workers, they're forced to go out, and other people want to just stay home. I know people in the UK that haven't left their house but twice since the pandemic started. And to me, that's wild, because I'm like, wow, like, I like outside, you know? But for them, that's how they are protecting themselves.
So yeah, to be honest, is like there's two things. There's like, yo, your individual agenda, like what works best for you as the person, and by extension, your family. So even when we say like, yo, you know, I love the hood, I want to stay in the hood, I got to get back to the hood, everybody has to deal with like the ramifications of whatever that means. So if you're like, yo, I know that, you know, whatever, I want my children to go to, you know, whatever, XYZ school, right? Like you have to figure out what are the best options for these kids. Do I remain here? Is this environment safe for me to be here and grow in? Like what's changing at the end of the day? So a lot of the changes I think that you're mentioning that needs to happen won't necessarily happen by us just meaning well, by us staying in the neighborhoods and trying to flourish, because they're systemic issues. There's a reason why our schools are underfunded. There's a reason why if I go to an elementary school, they're using the same math book that I had 20 years ago.
And then also, but also as well, it's not necessarily going to change something by you conforming and not living your true self, and not bringing or wanting to deal with somebody who's from that that lower neighborhood in a sense, and all of that, because like there's always ways to go about it. So I'm not sitting here saying, yo, go into the worst neighborhood and act like you run shit. Like, yo, no, I'm not saying that at all. But me personally, I mean, I feel I have some type of responsibility to bring, if I get enough power or enough money, I'm not necessarily going to just analyze that job environment. I'm still going to be thinking like that neighborhood that made me, that those lower income people who didn't have the same resources and situations as I was able to get myself into. Sometimes they may need somebody to get the little extra hand, or for you to help them pull them up with it. You know what I mean? So I don't know. It's a tricky situation. Like it's so many parts to it. So it's not like it's just one answer to solve everything. You know what I mean? So I definitely understand what you're saying, though. I definitely understand you.
You also do what you can, you know?
Right.
Rob may not hang out in the neighborhood, but he may have friends that are there, so maybe he stops by and supports somebody's business. You know, you don't got to be over there. You know, everybody plays a different part.
Right.
In this, that's something that we forget sometimes. We always try to criticize people for what they're not doing.
I like that. I like that statement. He said that he's supporting if they black. I like that statement.
But here's black, that gets lost on everyone. It's like we make a lot of surface level like comments and you know, statements about like our state as black people. Like we say support black business, and what does that truly mean? I think most people don't really understand what that truly means. It's like Rob can have a business and he's a Black owner. And in turn, we all support Rob. And what does Rob do with all the money that we've given him? He in turn spends that in the white community. So we're not even supporting Black business. We're just supporting someone who has a business, in turn spends that money outside of our community, who doesn't employ people within our community, who doesn't give back to social initiatives, who doesn't. So that's not supporting a Black business. So the thought of like someone having a business and they're Black, that is deeper than that.
Yeah, well, to Mr. Mahad's point, there is layers, right? So Rob will buy Black. It doesn't mean that he doesn't support the community. He supports. Right. That's how he's supporting. But in in matters of survival, he believes that he would prefer to place himself where he is because that's how he's going to survive, right? Because everyone has a different thing for survival in relation to survival, right? So he's doing what he's part, as Obi said. He's doing right. Whereas I'm the person that's going to be like, everyone get your money together, let's go. You know, and I'm probably going to be the one to go in that community and be the peacemaker, right? But that's because we're at different levels of self, right? It does start with yourself. And I will go back to what Obi said, and he was very honest in saying he didn't learn who he was properly, like, and loved himself the most until he was in his late 20s. For some people that comes later, but we've all realized and established that we need to be mentors to people to build them up so that they can have that awareness from much younger age. So when they are at this junction that we're at right now, where the society is a mess and people don't feel safe, they can say, well, do you know what? I love myself and I'm going to protect my youngers the way that you guys have protected us, because we've established that in our generation, we didn't have much people to mentor us. And those people that we drew references to are people in our family. So outside of our family, if we didn't have family, we basically taught ourselves.
But think about this. It's going to be like that for every generation. As much as we're all in our 30s and we're saying that, the kids who are 20 years old are saying that. The kids who are in their teens are saying that. The kids who are preteens are all saying that. And once again, it's like, it kind of ties back into like, what are our elders doing, our moms, dads, aunts, uncles, whoever's present. That's like the first level of defense. When you peel back the layers and you think about it, like, and I wasn't here for the, when Obi was speaking to that, but it's like, think about like, just growing up in general, how free were we to pursue the things that we just wanted to pursue purely because it made us happy and we weren't in that position? Why? Because it's always an economical thing. It's just like a lot of our peers who are not people of color, let's just, use that. They're allowed to do all these things and find their purpose in life at an early age because they're not bound by like having to pay bills, having to live within social constraints. Like a lot of the economic aspect is taken care of. So they're not worrying about, well, if I say this one thing, I'm going to lose this job and, in turn, lose.
They don't have to worry about not being able to even be part of a profession. Like I was asking me about if I go to therapy and everything. I remember when I was younger, like people would advise young Black people to not like stay away from psychology. Don't do that. Which in turn, I feel like that would probably have been a great investment now, because now I see everybody talk about they want a Black therapist. But I'm like, I know so many people whose parents kind of told them, do not go down that psychology or that route. So we even have to worry about that in life. And like, you're Black, you might not be somebody that people are requesting in this position.
I think
that's not something other groups have as much.
No, I think only now we're able to, like right now, like as of like the past 5 weeks now, people are finally understanding like, it's okay that I can do and say whatever. And if people don't want to associate themselves with me or they don't respect it, like, cool.
But shouldn't it have always been that way? Because I'm sorry, like I just can't imagine.
Think about like fraternizing with like coworkers and whatnot, right? Like all the time I think about it. I love movies and I talk about movies all the time. And what, my white coworkers, Asian, whatever, we all talk about things like related to like people from their walk of life, their culture, like they're white, they're Asian, whatever. But if I'm like, have you guys ever saw Higher Learning? Let's just use that one, because it's not all ghetto and violence, like something like, let's say Juice Above the Rim, which I love. But if I say, have you ever saw Higher Learning? They're like, no. Like, do you know who Omar Epps is? No. You know Tyra Banks? Maybe, she's a supermodel. But they don't even concern themselves with things from our culture, other than popular culture, like rap music, let's per se. But they don't know the conditions and the things that make those people and makes the music. So on a lot of different levels, like,
none of that.
Yeah.
A lot of people are insular. We have to admit that. We're in a place where people are narcissistic and insular, right? So I don't understand why we expect so much of certain people. Like, seriously. Because even within our own culture, we can be quite narcissistic and focus on self, right? We've already established
that's how we've been taught. It's like,
right,
if you
but
think
I
about it.
I was listening to a webinar the other day, and someone said the only reason why they know about white culture is because they learn white culture to survive, not because they're interested in it. You know, like
It's taught to us in school, outside of school. It's like, as much as we're black and black is popular culture, like white culture is pervasive culture. Like, we talk about pop music, we talk about white American education. Like, we don't learn about like Caribbean education here. We don't learn about African history. We learn about African American history, which starts at slavery. We don't know anything before that. So as much as we think that we live in our blackness, and we really just playing by their rules, and you know what I'm saying, is like, we're teaching ourselves about our own history while learning someone else's history first. And within no one else's culture is it that way. You know what I mean? Like,
before I go, I want to say that right there is what we need to start. That's what we need to focus on, is the education of ourselves and the future generation. Is we have to educate them. We have to teach them, because if we leave it up to the system that we were brought in, it's gonna fail. You feel me?
Yeah,
100%.
Brothers, London, good night.
Yeah, good night.
Peace, boom.
I do think also, as a group of people, racism is a huge thing in America, but us as Black people, kind of what we've been talking about, classism is what we need to focus on the most. We can't change our racism, but we could definitely change, you know, like, how do you defend ourselves? How do we get ourselves to a higher class where I could protect myself, where we could be better connected as well, you know?
But that's the thing, we don't view
At least
classes.
if you're going to take me down, you're going to go down with a fight.
A lot of us come from nothing. So when we start to attain things, which is trivial, we start to separate ourselves. That's where the classism starts. It's like, okay, I can afford to live in a bigger, better house in a different neighborhood. I can afford these clothes. I can afford not to be in poverty. So now there's classism. Now I don't even associate with the lower rung of people. It's not even a thing for me. Automatically, I'm removed from like what's actually happening in life. And that's classism at its finest. It's like, yo, these Black issues, Black Lives Matter, it's not really like, it's not my concern. I'm good. I live in Beverly Hills. You know what I'm saying? I'm in Hills. I'm like, what do I need to worry about? So that's part of the issue, is that what is like mainstream, what's promoted to us, what's marketed to us, what we consuming. Like, there's no reason why we need to spend all this money on consumer goods and luxury, and we don't have a proper education, and we don't have a good house, but we got a Mercedes Benz in the driveway in the hood. You know what I'm saying? It's economics. I don't think we really understand economics that well. So when we just start to...
I have a question. What y'all think about people quick to cancel Virgil, but canceling like Gucci for 3 months?
I feel like people didn't read enough into the whole situation with Virgil. It was a very big misunderstanding when you actually take time to read it. He was a part of a chain that everyone donated $50. And that's how that $50 came along. And everyone's like, oh, wow, you only donated $50. He was a part of a larger chain with a group of friends, and everyone donated a little bit. That has nothing to do with what he did personally outside of that $50 chain of people. So he's actually been doing a lot. He's been putting on very much for the Black culture, and we're just gonna cancel him over $50? It's bullshit. I mean, if
you have
you're in fashion still.
You gotta analyze everything on its merits. It's like, I mean, I don't know too much about it. I can't speak about it, but if I'm whatever, take Virgil out of it. Let's use Kanye West, like someone who's within the fashion industry, but the biggest name. If Kanye came out and he donated $50 and did nothing else, you'd be like, yo, Kanye, like, what type of time you on? Like, you can contribute more to the cause, financially, socially. So Virgil is already known in the fashion arena to be classist, if you will. He's already in rare air that most other people that's worked harder than him, they're not occupying the same space. So if you come out and you only donate $50, that's the initial thing you do, and nothing comes after that, you will get criticized.
But he's done more than that.
I think that was
Kirby for president. I'm just gonna say Kirby for president.
So Virgil still works underneath Gucci though, right?
Louis Vuitton.
Yeah, Louis
Vuitton.
Yeah.
Well, Louis Vuitton. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay.
So what's wrong with him starting his own thing? Why?
He has his own thing.
I mean, like his own section of the brand.
Because he had Off-White, right?
Yeah, he has Off-White, which is amazing. It's doing amazing numbers.
Maybe it's not
amazing is an overstatement, in my opinion.
Is Off-White under Louis Vuitton?
No, it's still Louis. Brand.
Does he own Louis?
He no longer owns Off-White. We've just been advised he no longer owns Off-White. And to Christine's point, he does need to do better.
He does need to do better, but I just don't personally like the cancellation of a black man. I do feel like people could learn, people could grow. I don't know. As Rob was saying, I think Virgil got caught up in a part where
the cancel couch is fake.
It's silly, but listen, you got to be accountable. Everyone wants to speak about LeBron James, like social media activism, actual real life activism, et cetera, and he's hypocritical at the same time. Like when the whole issue happened in the NBA in China, he quickly made a statement about it. Like, you have an entire race of people being oppressed in another country, and because it doesn't affect you or your dollar in America, like you didn't want to address that at all.
Nah. I'm against that. Why he ain't make that initial comment? Why should he go down for the white man? Nah, I'm sorry.
What white man? It's Muslims in China being oppressed, bro. It ain't no white man. It's people like you and me.
Huh?
It's Muslims.
The Muslims in China.
What happened?
It's Muslims that's being basically taken in the intermittent camps and being retrained to Chinese.
I understand, but this man made that statement. Why he the one retracted it and not standing by it?
So you can't. It's similar to how everyone say, "Oh, you can't say Black Lives Matter and then other whatever." That's the whole thing on itself. But like, it's hypocritical, is what I'm saying. You can't stand for like human rights, and that's like probably the largest human rights violation at the moment. You can't say one thing and then when someone presses you in the issue, you're like, well, you know, I got so much of my own issues going on. You know, I just want, you know, my own kids. I got my own kids to go to high school, and I got to worry about that.
Nah, he's the best before as he should. Shut the hell up. If you go mess up your bag.
You shouldn't say nothing then. But that's what I mean. You can't make a statement.
But they're going to come to him to say something.
No, he made the statement on his own accord, just in that particular example. It's just like now, you have the two factions. LeBron wants to go back and play basketball. Kyrie Irving is saying, nah, I think that's taking away from Black Lives Matter momentum and making social change, right? So two separate
I agree with Kyrie.
Right. Whether we agree or disagree with Kyrie, you can think back to 2016 with Donald Sterling. They all had a bigger and better opportunity to bring about change, and they did nothing. They all went back and played basketball like idiots. So once again, that's hypocritical. Mm-hmm. You understand what I'm saying? You have to acknowledge
what happened with Donald Sterling that they didn't do.
Basically, you had a racist owner saying, I don't want people associated with Black players, like they know their place. He's a majority owner in your league.
And they got him out.
You have a voice and a platform to say, immediately, we don't stand for this, and we're not playing basketball until he's removed. That's not what happened. They all went back, wore I Can't Breathe t-shirts.
I'm in support of playing basketball, by the way.
Yeah, because you like the sport and you want to watch it.
Yeah, so but let's.
Kyrie Irving got to come through with real plans. What they gonna do? Sit out for 3 years? Nah, I don't like this. Oh, we're not doing that. Are you gonna
think about it. Listen,
in December?
You know, you guys were pressed earlier about like what can we do as Black athletes? That's what you can do. They all have the equity and capital to create.
No, I agree with that. At the end of the day, I've always felt stop putting the onus on these. This is America's problem.
It's not.
Hold on.
You have to take the backlash. It's not on them.
Gavin, let me finish. Even this is my perspective. Even with Colin Kaepernick, I've always asked every time there's racial issues. I'm like, or any issue, I'm like, why is it always the Black person? that's put on the forefront to do something about this? Where are the white people? Why are the white people never accountable? Why are the owners never accountable? It's always on the black athlete. So I'm not here
they
for
created
athletes
the
to
institution,
take the fall on everything.
If I created the NBA, I'm not worried about how diverse it is. I'm worried about the bottom line.
And I'm cool with that. But what I'm saying is the players need to put the onus on these owners to do something. They don't have to stop playing now. Y'all got to do something with this process.
But that's history. History would tell you that nothing is going to change. That's history. Like that, we have.
I mean, but that got to be a demand now.
At the past 100 years, that nothing has changed. So what do? Why should LeBron be worried about sending Bronny to play for an NCAA team when he could just create his own sports academy and get him in the best shape possible to go to the pros?
I mean, that I agree with. That I totally agree with.
Like, why should Mikey Williams be worried about going to play for HBCU when he could just go support something like Mamba Sports Academy? Like, why should it even be a question about doing the best thing for you? Like, what difference does it make to go and do? To his point, Mike Williams is like, yo, if you're a killer, you're going to kill anywhere. I don't need to go to Duke. I don't need to go to Kansas. I don't need to go to any of the big schools. I can go anywhere. I have social media. I have over 1 million followers. I'm going to do the same thing anywhere on earth. It doesn't really matter where I go.
Right. I guess the point is, I want to bring it back because I know we're going to wrap up soon. I think it is the point of people are protecting themselves, you know, and they aren't really seeing the bigger picture always. We're trying to see the bigger picture. So we've already established that we have to educate our people. We have to hold our people accountable, to Mr. Hard's point, and we need to make sure that we are instilling our history in our people, whatever that reality is. Now, the Black narrative for me cannot just be about the African American narrative, because we're fortunate enough in New York, for instance, to have Guyanese history, Jamaican history. We have so many different subcultures and subdivisions, African even, you know, where we can learn from. And that's all a part of our history as Black people. You know what I mean? So to your point, in school, they're only learning really about slavery. That is the history of the African American. There is obviously so much more history that we have there, but that's for us to collate that and educate. Like, it doesn't take nothing to create a website. It doesn't take nothing to create an Instagram page. We do these things daily, you know? So I think that we just need to really use the tools that we have available, in my opinion, and legit make it happen without excuses. And we have to be persistent, because nothing happens overnight.
Yeah, I think I don't know how soon we're gonna wrap it, but you have to be honest and not be hypocritical. If you're about like progressiveness, if you're about like helping people, if you're about like, you have to, in every part of your life, like be true to that. You can't say like, yo, I'm for workplace equality, et cetera, you're discriminating against Black women. You can't be for like, yo, I'm trying to push this culture forward, and like, you know, you're just doing the most vile. You're still shooting people. You're still selling drugs to your same neighborhood. You still, whatever it is, you have to be 100% true in every aspect of what it is you're trying to do. So you can't do one thing and then when everyone's not looking, you're doing another. You can't say like, oh, you know, I'm all for the Black family, and you have a wife and you cheat on your wife and you have multiple girlfriends and you have kids, you know, outside of wedlock, etc. It's like so many different facets of our life, but you can't be true on one side and the false on the other. You just have to be 100% like through and through. That's the only way the change is going to happen. It's like, I've probably seen more change happen by people watching what I was doing or being in close proximity, and then that in turn sparks some kind of interest, and then they follow through and do whatever it is that interested them. But
proximity role model
and saying things, but so much gets absorbed because you have your own action to take from that. I can tell you guys all tonight, yo, this is what I'm doing. I make $1 million. And then tomorrow, like, it fell on deaf ears. You go back to doing whatever you were doing and you weren't interested in what I was saying.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. I think that we have a lot of points here, and I think that we can all come together. I'm not going to give up the fight. So if anyone's ready to roll with my $150,000, then feel free to. I'm down for it. You know, like, we're going to make it happen. And if I could do that, you know, all of you, there's what, 4 of you here, so that's $4 already. Yay! But
I throw a 20. I throw a 20 in there.
Let's go. You know, and then encourage.
I'm gonna give you 2 Virgils. I got you.
Thank you. You know, like we can. I know we've got it in us, so I'm gonna keep pushing. I feel like we have it in us. I know we have it in us. We're strong people. We're brave enough to come and talk and share our stories. I speak with you individually, so I appreciate the relationship and connection I have with each of you. And I hope that it will grow over time. And I hope that we are able to impact the change that we need to see in our community. I obviously thank you all for being here with me today and appreciate your time. I know that everyone that's tuned in is engaged. We've had people here from the start, so we appreciate those that are tuned in too. But I always leave the platform for everyone to put their socials, their businesses in the chat. So if you've got something to promote it there. And anyone that's listening in that has a business or wants to promote themselves or get in contact with anyone, feel free to also drop your handles in the chat bar too. We're all about that.
And Rob just asked a question, is protest not working? I'm going to just give you a quick 30 seconds. It is working because we're having this conversation now. It is working because there's laws been passed. And it is working because your employer probably made a statement about what's happening. That's never happened before.
I think it's fake, though. They did make an employee. They did make a statement. I think it's fake.
It doesn't matter if it's fake.
Looting working too. Looting is working too.
Looting and rioting work too. I was on the side of supporting all of that. I was with all the shits. You'll take all
purpose, right? But you can go to work tomorrow and probably call someone out who's being racist, and you probably won't get fired. So that should tell you enough.
Yeah,
you
I
can
agree.
go threaten about suing right now, man. So it definitely did work.
But the thing is, they're putting up statements on how my job is a safe place and how the people of color in our facilities are safe and we're welcome there and making us feel comfortable. But there is no people of color in the higher management. So we don't believe them.
Of course. Why would you believe them?
Okay, cool. But they're definitely putting out statements.
They're doing what they're supposed to do. So in turn, you need to do what you're supposed to do. If you feel, and granted, like we're all in the same boat, I can't wait to go back to work so I can finally tell people who have been low-key, like microaggressive, like, yo, you know, when you do those certain things, it's actually racist. You know what, when you don't pay us as well as like the other people, it's like low-key oppressive. Like we are at that juncture now where you can say something and maybe not lose your job. I mean, it's up to you if you want to say something, because once again, you have to live with the decisions that you make. And if you lost your job tomorrow over something you said, you know.
Perfect. Well, thank you all for joining me once again. Appreciate your time. Hope you guys have a lovely evening, and we will see you soon.
All right, ciao.
Ciao.
Y'all be safe. Y'all be safe.
Ciao. Ciao.